What is up, everyone? I'm Jeff Lund, and this is the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast, where we are intolerant of weak-minded attitudes that keep people from pursuing new and exciting things in the areas of fitness, outdoors, and general lifestyle. Talking with my buddy Stephen Ellison today. Stephen and I grew up on Prince of Wales Island in Klawock. He's a medical student in Anchorage, and he goes on caribou hunts and moose hunts and backcountry skiing and snowboarding and rafting in his downtime, which there's not a lot of being a medical student. But we're going to talk about a do-it-yourself moose hunt that he's been on a few times, and the specifics going on there, the gear that you need, pack rafts, and all that stuff that you need to know. It's going to be a good one. Coming up next, episode 33 of the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast. Make sure you go to themediocrealaskan.com for all content, more insight, and pictures from this hunt. Here we go. Start rolling here.
Yeah, sounds good.
What you've been doing a lot of skiing up there. What's that stuff like backcountry type skiing, or is that what's the program up there?
Yeah, so mostly we do backcountry skiing. There's a couple big destinations, Turnagain Pass and Hatcher Pass up here. Throw the skins on and hike up the mountain and earn your turns, they say.
That's crazy. How do you? Because you're in your third year of rotations. Like, how do you find the time and the energy for that? I'd assume that you're pretty exhausted once you're done at the hospital. So let's go hike up some mountains. How does that work out?
Yeah, I think the first couple years of med school, you spend so much time, like basically every 3 seconds studying. You have to get out and do something to keep your sanity. And so that's basically what it comes down to. You find something that's accessible and, gets enough of the crazies out in a short amount of time to help you get through school.
Yeah.
And the backcountry skiing is definitely and it keeps you in pretty good shape. Looking forward to, sheep hunting and stuff like that. It's a really good way in the wintertime for me to keep my legs under me.
Yeah. We both grew up on Prince of Wales, and there's a lot of stuff to do outside there, but it's pretty limited. I mean, you can hunt bear, you can alpine deer, you can rut deer, and you can fish. Mm-hmm. But up there in the Anchorage, there's so much more stuff on the road system. So how would you compare? It's like a wholly different Alaska. What are you finding is kind of the most fun about living in the Anchorage area that you could drive these other things? What's the best thing?
Oh, I don't know if there is a best thing, but like you said, it's endless. There are things to both areas that you have to love. I mean, growing up in Klawock, this time of year, if you want, you can be on Steelhead in 5 minutes from your front door if you wanted to. Here, I'm an hour and a half away from good fishing, but any day of the year I can go and do that. Anchorage itself is not the greatest place on earth, but its location is definitely pretty prime. I've got world-class backcountry skiing an hour in either direction. I've got really good fishing hour and a half in either direction. Willing to work, have some really excellent hunting opportunities off the road system, which is something I just didn't grow up with. Being able to drive for 18 hours straight if you want to go hunt caribou up on the haul road,
Yeah. So what's
Yep.
Last fall you got a moose. I was like, so 2 years ago was the caribou, and last year was the moose,
we did
right?
A hike in, pack raft out, trip up into the Brooks Range, initially for sheep, but got weathered out. Ended up getting the caribou out on the slope after we floated out. And then also just a couple weeks after that, one of my buddies from back home came up and we went on a moose hunt as well, on a float hunt, and got a moose that year as well. This last fall we went and floated the same river, my roommate and I, and got lucky and got another nicer moose this time.
Nice. What unit was that? I kind of want to hammer down on that moose thing, because I just rewatched the Ranella moose hunt in I think it was BC, Yeah, that sounds crazy. The float part. So what unit were you in?
Unit 20. It's up around Toke. I'm typing in my computer right now.
So you drive. Oh yeah, there's a bunch of. I got my regs out here.
Yeah.
So you're Fairbanks area. So how long is it to drive to? Or do you go up through Fairbanks to get there? Or do you
take the southern route, the Glen Highway, which is an absolutely stunning drive up past the Matanuska River and Glacier, up to Glen Allen, and then I drive to Toke from there. And so you bypass. You're on the eastern. You stay east of Fairbanks essentially the whole time. And then from Toke, it's another hour and a half to Moose Camp.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to ask you what river that is, but is that a permit tag or is that over the counter?
It's permit, but it's a registration hunt, so anybody can do it.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, and it's a lot of unique opportunities like that up here. You just had, we do a lot of our hunting and fishing out of pack rafts now, in large part because we just want to get away from the crowds. Everybody in the state has a four-wheeler or a side-by-side. So when you drive up these highways during moose season, it was pretty short. Basically every parking base on the side of the highway is taken up by a pickup with a trailer behind. And so, we've gotten lucky, one being that we're completely new to moose hunting, just decided to kind of take our own path and float hunting these things. We've gotten really lucky a couple of years in a row and, filled the freezer.
Nice. Yeah, that's the funny thing. Alaska is so massive and so sparsely populated. Yeah, you go to certain areas and there's a lot of people. You still have your combat fishing. And you still have the easiest areas are the easiest areas, and most people are going to go to those spots. And it's you wouldn't expect it, but it's definitely a thing. People are onto these.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, Alaska is road, at least here in South Central. I mean, it is fairly limited. And I think the bottom line is people are only going to work in general as hard as they have to. So these four-wheeler trails are extensive, and that's how I would say 99% of people hunt moose up here. I think growing up back on POW and getting our butts kicked to get up into the Alpine for deer definitely prepared me well for float hunting moose.
I thought I was in some decent shape, man, but in August when we went up that, just the straight up, the highest, worst, steepest part, and I was hurting, man. You drug me along. That's what you have to do. You can't. Oh, do you want to go a different way? You just finish it out.
Just gotta send it. Sometimes it was painful for me too, buddy.
Yeah, that was fun. Saw some nice deer, just nothing. It's so nice to be able to be selective like that. You sound like a jerk if you're sorting through the deer and if you're all about the meat, but there are certain special spots where you can really be selective and you can say, I can settle for both. I can look for some nice antlers as well as some meat. So. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it's a pretty special space.
I'm certainly not like that in all of my spots, but the one that we've gone to a couple times, that's kind of my pot of gold from the get go. It's been really good to me, and obviously the first time we went up, we both came back with monster bucks, and it's just one of those places. If I'm questioning it, I'm probably not going to pull the trigger on it. You just want every time you go back, you want them to be there. So,
well, it's going to be a huge pain to hike it out anyway. And so if you want to hike something out, it might as well be worth it. You can go shoot just a nice little fork or something like that pretty much anywhere and make it pretty easy. So if you're going to go up there and you're going to suffer coming down anyway, you're going to suffer with a deer, it might as well be a nice one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and those, those big alpine bucks are, we need those deer to keep breeding. So I like to, when I can, at least make sure they've, gotten in a few years of making babies before you take them off the mountain.
Yeah. So what was your mental approach on the moose hunt? Were you just hoping to see any old moose? And in that, is there any sort of size requirement?
It's a good question. So the whole float hunting thing came about after I got into rafting and pack rafting. When I found out or decided that I was going to go to school up here in Anchorage, I started looking like immediately before I started looking at housing. I started looking at fishing and hunting opportunities. And so the Kenai is close by, it's world renowned for rainbow fishing. So I started looking at that. On one of my trips up here, I actually went down and fished it on foot with a friend. We caught a few fish, but you just see everybody floating by on the rafts and drift boats. And I knew, like, all right, these guys are, and you see them just pulling fish out of these holes in the middle of the river that you just can't reach from the bank. So I knew, I was like, all right, if I'm going to move to Anchorage, I need to get a boat. Once I got the boat, I started looking at different little adventure trips you can take out of Anchorage, because I just wanted to find easy water to learn how to raft in. You don't want to get thrown into class 3 or 4 water when you don't know how to row a boat. And I started seeing these YouTube videos and all this information on the internet about these just really awesome rivers. I was like, man, that looks like awesome, like somewhere I'd like to hunt, but I had no clue whether or not there were animals there or whatever. And then I came across this book while I was doing that stuff. And it's called Float Hunting Alaska's Wild Rivers, I believe. And as kind of silly as that felt to me, as somebody who's always, I have always done it myself. I've never kind of, done anything with a guide or just kind of go for it. That book was really cool as just learning kind of the basics. It talks a lot about the gear you need, the technique for float hunting, and then it gives you a decent number of rivers as kind of low-hanging fruit. And the possibilities for float hunting in Alaska are endless. We could go on for days about what I've learned in 2 years, but that book was huge for me in terms of getting just the nuts and bolts of what I needed to know and kind of where to go. Because a lot of the hunts in Alaska are not floating bridge to bridge like we do when we go to the Thorn River or something like that. You can just park your car downriver. But when, you and your hunting partners are broke med students, that's kind of what it has to be. So the hunt we do every year for moose, we throw a bike on the back of the Forester, go and stash it in the woods, float down the river. And my roommate, he was a competitive mountain biker in college. So he's just got, crazy legs. So if I pay him in beer and moose meat, he's happy to ride back and shuttle the car.
Jeez. How many miles are you talking there?
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
It really depends. It depends where you put in on the river and how far down you want to float. When the first time we did it, it was me and Roby from back home and one of my classmates, Pat. We had budgeted 5 to 7 days to float about 60 miles of river. And Rob blasted a moose, no joke, like 30 minutes into the first day from the boat. Yeah, we all felt silly because we had this huge boat full of gear. And it just worked out that way. And this last year, we lapped the same section of river that was about 12 to 15 miles, just because we didn't have time to do the big float. We actually only hunted the last 2 days of the season because of school. So we basically went up there with the mindset, that we're not going to get anything. And it was just kind of to get out and try. But lo and behold, last day of the season, we called one out.
How big was that one?
Rack it was right around 50 inches spread, and then had 4 brow tines on each side. And the unit that we're hunting at the registration hunt, it's any bull, which is nice. So if it has antlers, then you don't have to, sit and count and guess what the spread is. But most units in Alaska, in general, the rules are either has to have a 50 plus inch spread, or it's got to have at least 4 brow tines on one side. And I mean, trying to guess what 50 inches is from 300 yards away is not an easy thing. And 50 inches is a huge moose. When I'm used to, seeing an 18-inch spread on a blacktail and thinking that's big. Right. So it's not an easy thing. So any bull unit has been good. And I thought for sure the one that we got this time, when I saw it, it was a really brushy area. I called it to about 30 yards away before shooting it. I mean, when I saw that thing up that close, I was like, oh man, it's got to be 60 inches. It ended up being around, I think it was like 49 and a half.
Wow. Yeah, it was a nice looking animal there. What'd you shoot it with?
I've only ever hunted with one caliber and one gun. It's my 270. And I've killed deer, caribou, now moose with it. And that's what Rob shot his with the year before too. Just 150 grain loads in the 270.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what everybody says, man. It's just about shot placement. You remember Rob Buckingham? Yeah. His wife would shoot everything with a 243 because she's just a marksman. Uh-huh. So she'd shoot elk with a 243 because she's going to hit the heart and really short shots, and so you're not going too far, but you're just hitting the right spot. You don't have to worry about knockdown power or flinching because it's a caliber that you're not used to. And I really like using my 270. Uh-huh. I haven't gone with for the big stuff yet. Just black bear and deer, but I think just getting proficient at that seems like the way to go.
I think that most is like you just have to be comfortable with whatever you're shooting. Online.
What other type of what brand was that pack raft, and do you recommend it? You've had more than you've had one that you kind of fish for them, right? But as far as that pack raft go, what's the brand? What do you run?
I have 3 boats, 2 pack rafts, and 1 bigger kind of whitewater raft. My hunting pack raft is by a company out of Fairbanks. It's called Pristine Adventures, and I have the 9-foot model, but they now make a it's like an 11-footer, which is basically like an inflatable canoe. And my boat, the 9-footer, I think is rated to haul like 800 pounds. This thing is a beast. It packs up to, with the pump and the paddle in the boat, in the bag, is about 15 pounds. So if you're doing a fly out or whatever, I mean, it's not going to take up a lot of weight. My other one, my little boat is a alpaca raft. And I mean, that's just kind of like the original quintessential backpacking pack raft. That's more geared toward whitewater, or, if you're doing little hike in, float out trips like that. We took, when we went up into the Brooks Range, I took my PR-49, the big one, and Parker took his alpaca, and our packs going in were 110, 115 pounds, because we were going for the long haul for sheep. And we floated out on, the rain started dumping. It was torrential downpour. This nice little river turned into a class 3 freak beast.
Ooh.
And
Nice.
And so he was rafting out on an alpaca with a 100-pound pack strapped to the front of that thing, and it was pretty sketch. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend the alpaca for hunting per se, unless you have a bigger boat that you can haul meat in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the PR-49 is an awesome boat. I'd really be interested to see the bigger model in person. And when I'm out of school and residency and can afford to upgrade one day, I'll potentially go for that bigger model.
Mm-hmm. I was talking to my buddy Stephen out of Fairbanks, and he goes with Pristine Ventures too. And I've seen a couple of these inflated at the Sportsman's Warehouse in Anchorage.
Yeah.
They just look great. I bought a Watermaster for floating. Those are really great for trout fishing, but I would not even consider going on a big hunt. Well, maybe the Thorn, But that PR-49 looks pretty sweet. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, it's and I got mine with the marine coating on the bottom, just in case I take it back home and I want to hunt from the boat and run it up on the beach or whatever. But it comes with an extra couple millimeter thick PVC on the bottom. And it feels indestructible. When we were floating the river up in the Brooks, there's a lot of shale in the river bottom. And we'd be scraping these boats. So we both thought for sure both boats were going to get popped, and we were going to end up with this 30-mile walkout. But thankfully both boats made it through the alpaca and the PR-49. It just goes to show how ruggedly tough these things are built.
Yeah. Alaska proof, as Alaska proof as you can get, because nothing is really truly Alaska or even nature proof at all. But
yeah.
What other type of gear do you need for that? The Southeast hunt is just staying really, really dry. You need some good rain gear.
Yeah.
But it's going to be warmer. You're hunting September. Up there is like in October or even colder. So what other type of gear are you looking at to get prepared for?
Yeah. So for the moose hunt, you are hunting in September. Where we were up in the interior, at night it would drop down to about 15 degrees. So yeah, I have one sleeping bag, and I use that whether it's summer or winter. Just good sleeping bag, good tent, etc. And for hunting, I picked up a nice Vortex spotting scope here a couple of years back. And I have a nice pair of binoculars. Honestly, for moose hunting, I would almost just say leave the spotting scope at home. Have a good pair of binoculars for glassing, because in general, it's not like sheep hunting. You're not going to be trying to spot these things from miles and miles away in most places. So there's caveats there, obviously, if you're up in the mountains, but I tend to be minimalist when it comes to the rest of the stuff. I don't hunt with a tripod. A lot of the accessories that you can go for, I tend to opt out of. good frame pack is essential for moose hunting. I've gotten away with hunting deer and smaller animals with just a nice backpacking backpack. But when the quarter of the animal that you're hunting weighs, more than the entire animal I'm used to hunting, it's pretty important to be able to pack heavy.
Right. Yeah. What about cooking? Food that you take? Is it mountain house type operation?
So this is the nice thing about float hunting. This is like one of the major perks is that I've got a bracket mounted on the frame of the raft, because we take on this particular river we take a bigger boat. I take a 12-foot whitewater raft. It's got a cooler in it, and so you just hit Costco on the way out of town and fill it up with all kinds of goodies and stuff. But if I'm pack rafting and out in the mountains, etc., I mean, you've hunted with me. I don't, like mountain houses and stuff. That's all great if you have the room in your pack and you don't mind carrying the extra weight. But I tend to kind of deprive myself of calories while I'm out there.
Well, you did. I do remember you bringing. You vacuum packed a couple breakfast sandwiches.
Yeah, my dad did that. Like when I was on the way out the door, and they were terrible. I would not recommend it in the future.
Hey, when we got up there though, man, that looked pretty good. That egg yolk was in there, and that looked a lot better than what I was slumming it with. I think I had a PB&J sandwich.
Yeah, I mean, I think whatever you have sounds really good when you finally summit something. But yeah, I think too, the older I get, actually, I am starting to get a little softer. So I start to, I do bring some snacks from time to time, but usually I just throw in a handful of granola bars or protein bars or something. And yeah, it'd probably be easier if I actually, took better care of myself out there. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, I do like the, cooking the meal idea, especially if you get something, you're still up on the mountain, taking some of the back strap and cooking it up. I think that's
sure
a romantic notion, before you hike out, if you're on a multi-day hike. But for the most part, you're hunting Prince Wales, you get it done, you're coming back the next morning. You don't want to pack the extra couple pounds of fuel and your ingredients and everything else. It just really adds to the pack. And I don't have a big pack as it is, and so I'm pretty tight on space. But
yeah, I think it's interesting, contrasting Prince of Wales mountain hunting versus mainland Alaska mountain hunting. I would say Prince of Wales is brutal in its own special way. The terrain is rough, and the vegetation just beats you down, especially if it's wet, especially if you're hiking through, trying to get to Alpine and it's drizzling, or it rained the day before and everything is just wet. So you're wearing extra clothes to try to stay dry, but you're sweating underneath. But once you get to your mountain, generally you're kind of, whereas I found up here, I mean, mileage is the name of the game, especially with things like moose and sheep hunting. I think a lot of people have this notion that Alaska is just chock full of animals. But when you look at population density of animals in Alaska, I mean, you're better off going to Idaho or something to find animals. You do have to work for them here. And so I would say that's the name of the game I found up here is mileage. It's easier hiking a lot of the times, but you just have to go a lot farther.
Yeah. When I went to
so for me, yeah, go ahead.
A couple Junes ago, I went to Fairbanks and I had a rental car, and so went in each direction. Went down to Delta Junction. I'm just assuming that this is moose territory, so every one of these little lakes or these little boggy areas, there's going to be a moose there. But after driving for hours and hours and hours and not seeing moose, you start to think, well, yeah, they don't have to be by the road.
Yeah.
They're not.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it makes total sense. So then I started thinking I'd be lucky to see one. We ended up seeing two, and we went from Fairbanks down into Nenana, and then Fairbanks to Delta Junction, and then up to, I think we only went up to Fox to eat or something like that. But yeah, you're not going to see grizzly bears crossing the roads. because
No.
they have to be around there. If they don't want to be around, where vehicles are driving, then they don't. It's just that one little road intersects such a small portion of the outdoors up there. It's makes total sense. But
Yeah.
Nothing.
And you talk about the drive from Fairbanks to Delta Junction. You're just north of the Alaska range there, and that's a kind of a good primer for just thinking about the logistics of getting into the mountains. If you're going for sheep or caribou in the mountains, those mountains aren't that far away from the road, but I mean, a lot of times just to get to them, you're talking 15 or 20 miles of hoofing it, or four-wheeler if you have it and there's access. It's a lot of mileage, and it takes a lot more time up here to get to places and make the hunt happen. So you have to block out bigger chunks of time.
Yeah. I remember some trout fishing trips in California. You're driving 2, 3, 4 hours to get there. But it seems like it's going to be even considerably more time up there. What does it take to get from Anchorage to Tok?
Depending on conditions and stuff, I'd say about 7 hours from Anchorage to Tok. And then, if you're going, there are a number of rivers out in that area that you can float. But you're competing with a lot of people, especially in that area too. So for beginners, it's, we found our little honey hole, like little 10, 12 mile section of river using a bike, and it just works out. But it can be a little intimidating when you're starting out to see that many people crowding into every little four-wheeler trail and river and stuff to try to find these things.
Yeah. So what would you suggest to someone who's thinking about doing a do-it-yourself moose trip? It doesn't necessarily have to be in that area, but what would be things about gear, about preparation, about planning, about choosing rivers you'd recommend?
I think my first year here, looking to get into hunting, I did more research than hunting, and finding people who have experience obviously is key. That's how you learn spots. That's how you learn new country. But just poring over maps too is key, because depending on what your resources are, if you can afford to drop a couple thousand and fly out, well, the world's your oyster here. But if you can't, if you're like me, can't even afford a four-wheeler yet, you're a lot more limited in terms of where you can get to realistically. I mean, and then have to pack this massive animal out. So, that's going to be a big thing, is looking at the hunting unit, looking at the road access, and then, you can actually, like, Google Earth is a huge tool for me, looking at whether or not I think something's accessible. And obviously, it goes without saying, don't let Google Earth be your only source of information, because, we've all been burned before. But, you can see a lot of four-wheeler trails and stuff on Google Earth. So if you have an area in mind, or if you want to stay away from four-wheeler trails too, it's a good tool. But I think the big thing is knowing kind of what the regulations are. So what's going to be a harvest ticket hunt versus having to put in for a draw. And starting out, if you get a good draw, cool, and you can fly out, great. But I would focus my efforts on just trying to learn how to hunt moose in a harvest ticket area. Look for an area. You can go on the Fish and Game website and look at the statistics for how many moose are harvested in given areas. And if you can talk to people who have done it before and kind of get a feel for it, there are a lot of options. And lastly, the biggest factor again is just going to be your ability to access places. If you have a boat, that's great, helps out a lot. But again, the logistic factor there, it just goes up. because you have to figure out, am I going to fly out and float to the road? Am I going to go from road to road, et cetera? How am I going to get out of there with an animal?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
what about essential gear?
Going back just for a second, I would say, like, obviously the most important thing for anything, be it fly fishing or hunting, you just have to go for it. I think it's easy to get kind of paralyzed by, fear of failure. You're looking at one of the big things for me, the overcoming fear, was brown bears. Because we grew up with black bears, and you get probably overly comfortable with them. But never in my life had to deal with a brown bear before coming up here. And thankfully I haven't run into any hunting, but certainly fishing I have. And now it's just like, for me, one big thing that I had to just be like, okay, it's a possibility. Take all the precautions you can. It'll be okay. But you have to, whatever it is, you just have to kind of get over it and get out there and do it. Because until you get out and see the country, try calling these things, you just don't know.
Mm-hmm. Do you use spray
for bear? Yeah. A lot of people carry guns. Obviously, if I have my 270 with me when I'm hunting, that's gives you a lot of comfort. But when I'm fishing, I just take bear spray. I do have a handgun I could take, but my experience on the river with brown bears is honestly, I really don't want to have to shoot a brown bear, because, in that moment, if you're actually getting charged, I think you have a much better shot of wounding the thing and just making the situation worse. So just hope that you never have to do it. But yeah, I carry bear spray everywhere. If I'm out hiking, training in the summer for hunting, et cetera. And luckily it's just not been a big issue for me so far.
Good.
But
so other essential gear for the trip?
Yeah, if you're going to do it yourself moose hunt up here, I think, the big first thing is going to be your gun. Like I said, I shoot a 270. I actually shot mine with 130 grain load this year. And, when Robe shot his with 150s, his actually hit the deck like the first shot. But then it got back up, ran into the river, and you had to put another one in it. I was very cautious about shot placement with my 130 grainer. Made a good shot, double lunged it. It went about 15 yards, bedded down, and I put another one in it while it was laying there and didn't move again. But be confident. When you're the first time you get up close with one of these things, it's your heart's going to be pounding. So just practice being patient. Make sure you put a good shot on them, regardless of what you're using, because they can go a long way, even if you're using a big caliber 300 Winchester mag or something. Just get comfortable and confident shooting your rifle. Optics are important. Just because it is big country, you want to be able to cover a lot of ground. When I made the comment about leaving the spotting scope at home, I mean, that's just a weight thing. I have a big spotting scope. I went with a bigger one than I probably should have in hindsight. But, if that's what you have, then great. You're going to be able to see a long ways. And you're going to, if you do find bulls and you have to worry about sizing them, it's a really good tool to have, better than binoculars. But in terms of spotting animals, I'm a big proponent of binoculars. I don't go with crazy expensive gear. All my optics are either Leupold or Vortex. So solid entry level stuff, but that's not going to break the bank. After that, a solid frame pack is key. And I mean, the world of backpacks it's pretty huge now. So, whatever floats your boat there. Other than that, make sure you have, good sharp knives. You need, I bring a hatchet for helping to like break up the ribs and stuff. I took a saw last time and it was not the same. But if you're going to cut the antlers off, etc., you do need a saw. But I like to bring a hatchet with me for some of the bigger, hacking up some of the bigger joints and stuff. Been really helpful. And one thing I've never really thought about in the past, but with deer, because they're so small, like field dressing these animals, it's just a massive undertaking in its own. So depending on, if you're in a bigger boat and you can take more gear with you, I think it's worth it to bring a nice sized tarp. One, for camping purposes, if it's raining, you can throw it up over camp and, kind of keep you and your gear dry. But when it comes time to field dress this thing, if you can just throw a nice tarp down on the ground and be working with a clean surface, like throwing your quarters on a clean surface, it's just going to save you a lot of time and heartache down the line. And then game bags. Like I don't leave the house without game bags, and I double bag everything now because I did like little ninja mosquitoes up here. They get in and lay eggs even through like one layer of game bag, but that breathability is huge. I'm like you said, we're used to having things back home cooling a lot of times 12 hours after you shoot it. If you're in the Alpine, but yeah, up here, it could be 2 or 3 days before you're back to your car. And then you still have, 6-hour breakdown and a 6-hour drive home. So,
yeah, that's a different world, man. I'd like to get up there for sure. That's, in order to be a better Alaskan, you have to do all these different things. You get stuck in your routine of doing what's most available to you and do the blacktail on Prince of Wales or in the Ketchikan area. And I mean, you can have a pretty fun existence just doing that, but there's a lot more to see up here as a resident. You got to do it.
Yeah. I've always found ways to keep myself happy, whether it's fishing for dollies in Juneau and making the occasional trip back home to POW to deer hunt and stuff. But yeah, since being up here, it has kind of opened my eyes to the different possibilities. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with just being happy with what you have at home. But at the same time, if it's something that does pique your interest and you're curious about, like I can definitely attest to the fact that it's doable. Do-it-yourself moose hunt is totally doable. It's not outside of the realm of possibility whatsoever. So if it's something you think you want to do, just go for it. Buy yourself a ticket, drive up if you can, if you have your own vehicle, or rent if you have to. Try to do some homework the year before, and yeah, who knows? I mean, you might be going home with 700 pounds of meat.
Yeah, you have to get a new freezer.
Yeah.
That's a good problem.
Those are good problems. It's been like, our main source of food in med school this year has been moose. I think we've eaten moose like 4 nights a week on average. Yeah, nice. That's great. And we butchered it all ourselves at home. It's an undertaking. It's 2 or 3 days of like full-time processing, but very worth it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on here. Thanks for giving us the insight. Definitely got the interest here. Moose and caribou. We gotta have to do a totally separate one about fly fishing up there, because I know you've had a lot of fun. So we're gonna have to talk about that, but we'll save that one for.
Yeah, I've got some big plans cooking for this year for hunting, so I hope you can make it up and help me pack something out. Shoot.
Yeah, wouldn't mind that at all. Cool. All right, thanks, man. That will do it for this episode. Make sure you check out the mediocrealaskan.com for previous episodes. If you have not listened to the Do-It-Yourself Caribou Hunt on the Haul Road, make sure you get that one too. And we will talk to you next time.